is the time that you've always been waiting for. There's some, we're finally getting to the bowls. There's some information in the packet on page 14. You know how to read. You can read this. I'm not going to go into it today. Some of this information is for your informational and your education. And some of it will go into more deeply in a kinesthetic way in advanced one, but it's kind of preparatory. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to introduce you to, since I wrote the Ancient Sounds for a New Age, several new types, they're not new, they're very old, but several different kinds of bowls have come into our lives. These things are an absolute essential part of everybody's collection. 99-cent store. Why? Because of this. Okay, because of this. Yeah. Or this. Okay, what happens? Everybody's morphology is different. These make it stay where you put it, pretty much. So sometimes you're working with someone and here I am, I'm flat-chested. You could pretty much put them anywhere you want on me, and they're going to stay. Sometimes I'm working with a heart chakra. I can't work with a heart chakra because there's a lot of stuff right around the heart.
Implants.
Huh?
Implants.
And whatever. So I can't do that directly. So I have to do it a little bit higher. And then there's a contour of the body. So if I put it that high up, then it's going to go into their throat unless I have something like this to hold it down. We have to work with what the reality is. All we can do is the best that we can. Some people, I can get 3 bowls on their torso. Some people, I can only get 2. Those are the realities that we work with. So this is a big, big help. I love my 99-cent store. So I'm going to go tell you a little about these bowls. Richard has been collecting bowls. He's been working with bowls and working with the Tibetans going back and forth for about 30 years. He has a very deep, trusting, and honorable relationship with the Tibetans. That helps ensure getting the best bowls. When you go into a store that's owned by a Tibetan, the Tibetan's one of those lovely Tibetan stores, the person that works there is a Tibetan shopkeeper. It is not a Tibetan bowl collector. Bowls are one of many things that this person sells in the store. It does not mean that they know anything about the bowls. So if you say if this is an old bowl, they'll probably say, yeah, it is. But they don't really, a lot of times they don't really know. So you have to know how to decipher the sound, the quality. You have to know that the person that you're working with, it's like go into the street and ask any American about some piece of American history. Just because you're an American does not mean you know about the history, you know about such and such. That's a mistake that a lot of people make. Just because you come from a certain culture, you're an expert. Not so. Make sure whether you buy from us or from somebody else, make sure that the people that you're buying with has very good connections, eyeball-to-eyeball connections, over time with people who have and really know their stuff. That's some rules of thumb. This is called a cobra body bowl. We don't know a heck of a lot. They're kind of hybrids. And this is also a hybrid. We know more about this. So what I want to say about hybrid bowls, which are wonderful bowls, is if you are very, very wealthy and you can afford a street bike and a mountain bike and a racing bike, fantastic. Most of us cannot afford to get 3 kinds of bikes. So in that case, we figure out what we do mostly is, yeah, I ride on the street most of the time. I don't often ride on the beach, and I never do mountain biking. So a hybrid is a good choice for that, right? So I want you to think about that in terms of bowls. Also, the hybrid bowls tend to be a little bit lighter and less expensive than the Tibetan, the Jambadis, the Manipuris, and the Thatabadis. Given the choice, if you want the best for certain things, these are the best for the healing work that we're going to do. These are really good second nature. It doesn't mean they're bad. I use them myself. I don't use this one. I haven't developed a relationship. I have several of these, and I love my Ultra Body bowl. So I use them all. The sound of the Cobra Body, if it's a hybrid, it's more a hybrid between this and a Tibetan bowl. If you remember about the Tibetan bowls, the Manipuris and the Jambadis are more geared towards consciousness, opening the consciousness. If you're familiar with the Taras, they're more the white Tara. So the working through consciousness. Okay, the Thatabadi bowls are more like the green Tara, working towards consciousness transformation through the physical body. So that means that if someone has, their issues are more of a physical nature, illnesses versus emotional states, I'll want to have some Thatabadi bowls in my collection. The Jambadi bowls, which, now, if I put these all in a line, the Jambadi bowls, you can see they all have a very similar shape, but they're getting bigger. They're larger on the top, they're smaller at the bottom, and they're more kind of spread like this. So these are all of the ilk of the Jambadis and Manipuris, the Tibetan consciousness, white Tara, working more with higher realms of consciousness transformation, more intuitive in that way. If somebody's got cancer or any kind, fibromyalgia, or any of the, autism, or any of the more physical or illness-oriented conditions, I'll make sure that I have some of these to work with. That being said, as a hybrid, this one is more, it's kind of a hybrid with this. More goes towards consciousness transformation. This one, which I love, these are the Nepalese. So this Cobra Body, these are Nepalese bowls. Remember, it's in my DVD, the Nepalese bowls. If you're looking at the difference, I want you to look at the shape. Look at the shape. This one is flat on the bottom. It comes out like a cobra and goes in slightly. See that? This one puffs out on the side and keeps that roundness all the way up. And inside, there's a kind of like a little nipple inside. And on the bottom, there's a little indentation. This is, and it's quite light and thin. This is a Nepalese ball. And this is a good, if they're lighter, they're thinner, they're easier to transport, and they're less expensive than the fatter body balls. I use one of these on the sacrum because it works really well there, and I love it. It was my first bowl. One day I'll change it if I need something even stronger, but it's a pretty good little worker. The Ultra Body is kind of in a class of its own. We're told that these are all old. These ones have signs of being really, really old. There are not very many of them around. We have not been able to find too many of them. And I personally like to use them as grounding bowls. Price-wise, if you wanted to buy something like, say, around the same size, this one is $550, and this one is $365. So price-wise, they're less expensive. They're wonderful, wonderful sounds, and a lot of them. I use my Ultra Body. So a lot of them have that nice, great, rich, grounding bowl texture for putting at the feet, without the cost of the large gem bodies. And they're also lighter. So that's a little bit about this type of bowl. Monopori bowls, also called heart bowls. You can see how many different sizes there are. They go from very large. Bet you thought these were going to be low. So the real small ones like this are great to use as third eye bowls. You know, just something, again, I never put anything right on the third eye, but I will hold it above the third eye and work with it. But it's a nice size for the third eye. Sometimes also you can work with this type of bowl or this type of bowl over the throat. Throat's always a difficult area to work with because a lot of people don't have a lot of room here. So you have to work etherically. So then you know that there are many different kinds of sticks, and I use them all. You know, what's very important is use the correct stick, use the right tools. When we get into sessions and you're all going to have several different ones of these, don't be lazy. And, you know, it's really easy to have one tool in your hand and you keep using that instead of changing over. It's really not all that great to use this with this. It'll work, but it's really much better to take the time to marry the correct instrument with the correct bowl. So always have, all of you have several bowls. When you buy bowls from us, you always get a stick. Make sure you have several different types of sticks. Also, when you're playing a large bowl, that's okay. You know, that works, but it's also so different. You know, so different. And when I say that there's so much to learn, there's plenty to learn, even if you're not practicing with anyone. You could spend hours with one bowl, striking it in different places with one stick, then going to another stick, and you start to internalize the different sounds, the different textures you can get. You can spend an hour just with 2 or 3 sticks in one bowl. And that's what you should be doing too. So finally, you know singing. Now some bowls sing better than others, just the type of bowl that they are. If you look at my leather stick, you'll notice that it looks pretty ratty. The leather is really broken in. That's really good. Just like a boot. When you have a new leather boot, it hurts. It's very slippery. As you get to wear them in, it creates much better friction. And of course, the wood, we're trying to get some more like this. When Richard goes this summer to Tibet, he'll get more of these kinds of sticks. So this bowl doesn't really work very well with the wooden stick. It's much better with the, so I know that. There's some bowls that work perfectly well with both. Nice. The leather stick tends to produce more vibration, a stronger vibration in a bowl, and the lower sounds, and sometimes not a very strong sound at all, but a really strong vibration, and when it's on the body, that can be okay too. A pop quiz. What is this?
Cobra.
What's another name for Manipuri? Anybody know? Heart bar. Great. Very good. The bowls that go around the head. 3 bowls that go around the head need to be the anchoring bowls. Those are the bowls that you're going to go back, play over and over and over again, no matter what you're doing in a session, to keep that person, I would say, stable. If there wasn't something that we would go back to, it's too much. The brain needs something to hang on to keep going back to keep it, I would say, to keep it grounded, focused, and that consistency really creates a sense of safety. So, do you think, tone-wise, that the bowls around the head need to be very high or very low or kind of mid-range?
Low.
Yes. So, think about textures. Real high sounds tend to be what? Energizing or grounding? Energizing. Real low sounds tend to be what? Energizing or grounding. So do you want the bowls around the head to be as grounding as the one down by the feet?
No.
So you want mid-range. Ah. So you want 3 mid-range bowls. The highest of the bowl, highest is going to be at the head, at the crown. Now we're going to start working with triads. So when you're thinking about bringing somebody's energy from you're into a theta brainwave state to bring their energy down, how do you think the sound would go? Bong, 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 bong.
Last.
Hmm?
The last one.
Say the question again. Get the question.
Tone-wise, okay, you're going to be playing a pattern of tones that are geared towards bringing somebody's energy down.
So we did
Starting
more
high
descending
and then
than
descending.
lower, high and descending. So you're going to find a pattern of bowls. That's the first one is high, the second one is a little lower, the third one is the lowest. The one at the feet is going to be tone-wise where? What? The lowest of all of them. Okay. What about heart, solar plexus, sacrum? Descending. Where do most people store a lot of their grief, their
Behind
sadness, and their
behind the heart.
behind them? Interesting. Okay. Anybody else?
Solar plexus.
Solar plexus. Actually, the sacrum, the emotional body, the water body, the feminine energy is when we stuff it, when we swallow something we don't like, it winds up in your gut. You're carrying it around in your gut. So what kind of bowl do you think would be the most useful? Okay, deeper, but what type of bowl would be theta body? Because that's, I mean, most of the physical, it's where. So when you're choosing your bowls, you want to try and have a theta body here. And remember, it's always going to be from ascending to descending. So the highest one is going to be in your heart, then solar plexus, then, so it's going to be. Now, this triad can be a little different than this triad. It's great if you can find one where the crown is higher, or at least harmonically, really harmonically toned to these three. But they can be a little bit different, like different areas of the body. In the end, they will come together. That's what you're creating. Every dissonant chord is looking for harmony. So they will come into harmony after a while. Maybe not your first session. So that triangle. So there's that triangle. Then hand, hand, heart. What meridian is this? Does anybody know? This is the heart meridian. This is the meridian that opens the heart. So you want these two bowls have to be bowls. The hand bowls need to be bowls. Remember a couple of things. What happens if you put your hand out? What happens when you completely relax your hands? What happens to your fingers? Your fingers fold up. So if you have a bowl like this and your fingers fold up, what happens? It absolutely, it wraps around the bowl and it deadens the sound of the bowl. There's not much sound that's going to come out of a bowl like that. So you want to find a bowl that's large enough. It could be that size. Remember also that this is your Venus mound. This is your most heart place of. So what is ideal is to find a bowl that will be able to go on your Venus mound and also not have your fingers wrap around it completely. That's not always possible. We have to work with what is. Maybe our hand bowls happen to be this size, and for most people it works. It works well enough. But maybe you get a piano player with, 4 feet long fingers, then what do you do?
Use a bigger bowl.
No,
A smaller? Move it down.
no.
Move it up. Oh, that's what I've been doing, but I figured it was wrong.
It's not wrong, it's just not the most ideal. If you're lucky and you live with 300 or 400 bowls at a time, like I do, you can find a bigger bowl. If you're like most people, you have 1 or 2, you have the collection that you have and you work with that, and that is okay. But just what I don't want to happen and what happens a lot is it's not working, and instead of fixing it, you just ignore it and you leave it there. When something goes wrong, when there's a sound, you need to fix it. And there are all different kinds of ways of fixing it. So what I would like to happen now, I've got a lot of bowls and a lot of sticks. These are mine. These sticks, these little ones were created for ganta, singing gantas. You can use them for that. So there are some sticks, there's some felt, there's some sticks for striking, there are some sticks for gonging, and there's some sticks that are, the wood is always used for singing, and the leather. Somebody asked me what happens when a bowl won't sing. Sometimes these smaller bowls will sing with wood, but they won't sing with. Usually that means it's a little bit higher pitched bowl and it doesn't have that much bass in it. This will bring out the bass notes. If there's not a lot of bass notes in a bowl, it's not going to bring out that sound. So that might be a reason. There might also be other reasons. Okay, so we have, these are your 3-head bowls?
Yes.
Your anchoring pattern. Can I hear that?
It's like ear training.
Yeah. So that's descending, and it sounds okay together. So, what's wrong with this, besides the fact that it's ding dong bell? Ding dong bell, you hear that?
No.
Try that again.
Let's just try. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think?
Yeah, that's better.
Better.
From there.
Okay. Oh,
That one's.
this one is a special bowl.
It is.
Sweet. What do we do with that?
This is what you call a talking bowl.
Yeah.
This is a really strong talking bowl, very unusual kind of bowl. What are you learning from doing it? You're trying to hit it down here? Difficult. Much easier up here. Right?
But for this one I can, but for all of them?
You know, it's a good question. Silence is a wonderful thing. As you're trying to breath and silent, and as you're doing your practice sessions, you will find your own rhythm on how to do it. One common mistake is that people feel like they have to be doing something all the time, making sounds all the time. Remember, we're talking about consciousness transformation. So when you make a sound, or when you do something, the person who is receiving needs a little bit of time for their consciousness to expand into that space. So you're constantly creating spaces of presencing, touch, spaces of sound. Every time you create a space, think about integration, space integration, space integration. A lot of you, and today this will come up over and over again, are going to feel, oh my God, I don't know what to do next, or I don't know what I'm doing. There is absolutely nothing wrong with going back to breath and grounding. Take the time to ground yourself. That, when I said yesterday, does everybody hear me breathe? How does that make you feel? And you all said, oh, it's a relaxing thing. Right. So when you're not grounded, when you don't know what to do next and have to go back into present moment, just what the client is not going to be doing, oh my God, she's not doing anything right now. They're not going to be doing that. They're already going to be in a zone of relaxation. Think about going to an acupuncturist, going to a massage therapist, that time when you go, you lie on the table. Who doesn't think or feel, oh my God, it's so great to have just a few minutes of nothing. So remember that as you're doing your transitions. So the answer is calmly. So one of the things as I was introducing different types of bowls yesterday, something just happened to come up after the session, and I wanted to let you know that there's some really special bowls that show up. There are bowls with mantras on them, and oftentimes the little cobra body bowls that we don't know much about, for some reason, most of them have little mantras engraved in them. Not so with a lot of the other bowls, so those are pretty special for that reason. There's a bowl called a talking, we call it a talking bowl because you have to do very little movement and it will talk to you. And we found one, actually two, there's another one, but this was really the chattiest. There's one that we found in this collection. And I've written it down that it's a talking bowl. So if anyone is just really wanting, you can, I'll auction it off. No. This is it, and it's here. It's written talking, and I'm going to just put it right here. The other thing that I brought in to show you, and I think that by the end of the day of working with these really high quality instruments, you'll be able to remember that a really good bowl not only has, it looks, you can start to sense, is this a new bowl made to look old, which happens a lot, or is this really an old bowl? And it's not only going to be a look, you'll be able to also sense that and also hear it. The newer bowls have a sweetness to it. They also, and when you don't know, they sound great. When you start working with the old bowls, there's a maturity in the sound. And there's one student here with just a little nod of the head, so nobody knows who it is but me. Could I have permission to tell the story of one student here who bought a whole bunch of bowls that turned out to not be of the quality of the old bowls? Was that a nod? Okay. So the new bowls, when you get used to the sound of an old bowl, have more of a tinny, lightweight feeling, sound to them. And you start to grow accustomed. So working with some good old bowls and some really high quality bowls. Now we know that the cobra bowls and the Nepalese bowls might not be as old as we know that all the Jambanis are really, really old. They're still old, but I don't think quite as old, and we haven't found the research to support how old they might be, whereas the other ones we know how old, we know how long they've been in existence and things like that. So the other thing is the sound of a really bad bowl. Now this bowl does not actually have a crack in it. That's kind of the sound of a bowl that somebody might have dropped. A bowl that has a crack also might have just a thud to it. But what we notice, we have that just that irritating, and also the sound, it goes and it just disappears. When you're choosing a good bowl, you want to have a bowl that word sustained, that the sound sustains itself for quite a while. So I just wanted to give you an example of what to look out for.
what are we going to do today? We're going to talk a little bit about not the types of bowls, but more the effects of the bowls and what the bowls really are, what they do, or their task in a healing session. Then I'm going to do just a really short demo of the anatomy of the session. And then we're going to get into triads, and like we did yesterday, and everyone will get probably about 45 minutes to do something from soup to nuts. We'll see how far we get with that. This afternoon, I'm going to give you case studies because as important as technique is, and I don't expect you to have all the technique of everything that we've covered so far. It's what? Really, honestly, you have months to perfect that. What I want you to come out with today is a sense of a layout, a sense of the flow of the layout that you will be practicing. And then understanding that in your practice there are certain benchmarks that you want to get to. You want to know how to work with volume, how to bring volume up and down. You want to learn, you want to know how to work with pace. When you're working slow, when you're speeding up, what's the difference? Direction. What brings energy in? What calms energy? What directions you're working with? There's in your notes, I think it's on page. On page 19, there's a page that is called Best Practices. And it lists direction, texture, rhythm, patterns, volume, consistency, and fluidity. Those are the skills that you will practice, that you need to get. Fluidity, someone said, gosh, you really know how to sing a bowl for... Yes, how to sing a bowl without chatter while you're moving on somebody's body, waiting for the sound to come up instead of saying, oh my God, this bowl won't sing quick, I'm going to change it to another one. Understanding what you're really doing. So those benchmarks, those are the skills that over the next few months you're going to be practicing and getting just right. There's going to be, the anatomy of the session is a very structured pattern of what you will see today and what you will practice. During the course of today and over the next few months, you're going to be saying, well, you know, my intuition told me to do this and to do that and to do this and to do that, and I'll say, that's great. Go back to the anatomy of the session. There's a rhyme and a reason why I'm giving people a very specific pattern to practice. And that is because there's so much stuff that will come up just doing that. I don't want you to get overwhelmed with all the options and possibilities after the intro. That will come during Advanced 1, 2, and 3. Believe me, you will have, and we will be encouraging you to do the stuff that your intuition tells you. But that's because you've gotten the scales down. I want you to just get the scales down. Is this the only pattern? Is this the only way? Certainly not. Is there room for lots of other stuff? Absolutely. But I just want you to get the scales down. And this will happen when you go. If you've ever learned a martial art or any other thing that has a form in it, I always, and I highly believe there is freedom within structure. There's freedom within structure. All the cells of your being are going to be saying, oh, I want to just be creative and see where my body takes me. And that's because in your mind you're going to be practicing a healing session and not a practice session. In your mind you're going to be wanting to heal and really help the client. And I'm wanting you to practice your skills on your practice partner. So, and your lives will tell me what you will be doing. So just know the benchmarks, the best practices is something you to go back and back to. Why the bowls, why are they called ambassadors of compassion? Instruments of compassion. Why are they called instruments of compassion?
I heard a story, I don't know if it's true, but when China get into Tibet, Tibetans were very close about the bowls, but when they were thrown out of the city, they start like showing all the people these instruments. I don't know if that's why.
Well, that is recently, since the 50s, yes, and there's still a lot of secrecy about the bowls. We're very, very, very fortunate because Richard, who will be one of your teachers, will be co-teaching the advanced classes, and he'll be here at 5 o'clock, so you'll all get to meet him. Very scary dude. Has been to Tibet so many times and has such a good relationship. He took refuge with the Karmapa, and he was able to have one-on-one through oral translation or transmission teachings about the bowls. This is very, very rare. And that's why this course will offer you things that no one else did, because he learned them directly from someone who in general doesn't share that kind of information. So, and it is true, it was all very secretive beforehand. Now, the way the Dalai Lama and the Tibetans are thinking and is anything about Tibet and Tibetan culture, we don't want to get lost. The Chinese are killing us, so whatever we can get out into the world, we will. People ask me all the time, well, gosh, I mean, aren't there just a finite number of these bowls, you know? And don't the Tibetans want to, you know, what about the being ethical and, you know, selling these things? Are you kidding? When Richard goes to Tibet, the Tibetans come out of the woodwork saying, please, please take these things. One of the reasons is because when we buy bowls from them, we do not try and scalp the already poverty-stricken people. We give them the best possible price. So they bring stuff. They hear he's coming and they bring it to him. And the thinking is, get it out of here because it's going to be destroyed. The Chinese are just taking over our culture. Anything that you can get out into the world to preserve the teachings, do it. And the Dalai Lama is totally behind that. So that is something about ambassadors of compassion, yes. But really, it's the sound itself. As you probably know through your own studies, the bowls, when they were made in communities, monastic communities on the borders of Tibet and Bhutan. The Tharabadi bowls are also known as Bhutanese bowls. They're known as Bhutanese bowls not because they were made in Bhutan. Bhutan does not have a tradition of using bowls, but because they were on that border. And when the 7 metals were collected, smelted, and pounded into shape and sound, the monks were chanting mantras and blessings into them. And the vibrations, the frequency of the bowls, even though they have different tones, is the frequency of Om, the frequency of universal perfection. When we play the bowls, we know now that the tingshaws are instruments of awakening. The gantas and dorjes are instruments of moving energies. And the bowls are instruments of alignment. This is in the book, but gently nudging us back into our memory of wholeness. Wholeness, Om, completion, perfection. So when we are working with these instruments, they're bringing us viscerally back to an experience of something many people can't even describe what it is, but it feels like home. They know that it's that sensation of being something truth, something authentic, something real, that feels safe, that feels right. And what we're doing when we're doing sessions is we're bringing them back to that alignment over and over and over again. So we're strengthening the ability to stay there for longer and longer periods of time. That's why working with them regularly, I have my CD, Return to Om. I give my clients use that CD between sessions to stretch out the time of the effectiveness of the session. What happens? You have a session, you come out of the session, you feel relaxed, aligned, and centered. That's great. And then you go home and you have a screaming fight with your kids. You use the bowls, the CD, come back. You're creating a cellular in the session. It's not just the brain, it's the cells. You're creating the cellular memory of wholeness. You're creating the cellular memory of well-being. So, let me ask you, if you go to a gym, fitness center, once, and you work out, at the end of the workout you feel great, and then what? Is that going to fix you? No. Why?
You have to sustain it.
You have to sustain. You need repetition. That's how we learn. We learn through repetition. That's how we learn how to speak. That's how we learn how to walk. That's how we learn everything, is through repetition. And when you repeat something over and over again, what happens? What happens? It becomes, second nature. It becomes part of your nature. You grow to know it. It becomes part of who you are. It becomes easy. So when you're playing the triad around the head, and I say that triad is the anchoring pattern. Anchoring, how many people here have done psychotherapy? You know that anchoring is you ask your client to have a gesture or something, and you associate that with a good memory, so that every time they snap their fingers, they're going to remember that day on the beach when Dad scooped me up and said, "I love you," because Dad never did that ever since. So that will remind you that Dad loves you. Did I say that in a simple, easy way? That's what we're doing with the triad around the head. We're creating an anchoring pattern, anchoring the cellular memory to the memory of well-being. And so whatever else we're doing during the session, we're creating that pattern, that beautiful pattern of this feels safe, this feels good, this feels right. This feels safe, this feels good, this feels right. And that feeling is what your brain waves are entraining to. Remember, this is also about entrainment. So what is entrainment? Entrainment is, everybody heard that? What happened to your attention when you heard that? Just for a moment, it went out, and it went, "Thank you, train," and went out the window. The human beings will, their attention will go to the strongest vibration in the immediate environment. Strongest vibration. That doesn't necessarily mean the strongest sound, but the strongest vibration, frequency. Again, the person who's just been kissed walks into the room. What happens? We all feel it. We feel the joy because they're emanating that joy. So just for a moment, our brain waves will. So playing the bowls around people are entraining their brain waves to the sound of Om. Not the sound, but the vibration. So they're coming back They're aligning back to that. Their brain waves are in training to that. How many people here are musicians? Can you vocalize a C for me?
There's a piano.
Perfect pitch.
Without the piano, what is a C, Mike?
440.
Probably. You could sing a C. If you heard a C, would you know what that was? If you heard a G, would you know what that was? Would you?
Within a half of, I mean, I don't have absolute pitch.
Okay, but
I
within
have very good relative
pretty
pitch.
relative pitch. So if you heard that, you would
Within a half
probably,
step.
you remember what a sound after a while, what it sounds like, pretty much. So does the body. The body recognizes the frequency and the pitch of Om, and you feel it and hear it. So the regularity, going back and back and back and back and back and back until there's a place that you can just think of the bowls, and your body, your cells will configure themselves back, and you'll find yourself doing this. You'll think of a bowl session that you just had, or the CD that you listened to 500 times, and you'll find yourself going into a relaxation or an expression of that feeling of love energy